Man, you're bigger than me in both in real life and on screen.
I'll shrink down like this. A lot of people are just like, when they do see me in person, they're like, "Oh, you're a little bigger than I thought."
Totally. Yeah, you were.
Well, hey, welcome everybody to the video. I'm joined here today with Nolan. I keep messing up your last name.
Matthias.
Matthias.
There's
right?
like one person who ever gets it right, and that's the person in the Maple Leaf Lounge. She's there every single time I fly, and she's the only person who gets it right every single time.
There you go.
That happened this morning.
She must have some inside info. But yeah, I thought it was. I don't even know what I thought it was, but
Matthias. Hey. I get Matthias. I get Matthias. I get all sorts of things. So
it's all good.
Yeah.
Nolan is what he is, and I'm excited to announce for those not familiar, those not are in our academy. You're basically our newest contributor and basically partner within the Academy Network. Yeah. And we don't need to talk about that all too much right now. I want to basically take this as more or less a podcast episode and just chat, get to know you, because you're visiting here from
Calgary.
From Calgary.
Yeah.
And yeah, we've probably got a ton to talk about.
Yeah, amazing timing. I mean, I'm excited to, allow the Investing Academy to use some of the content that we have and some of the courses that we've had, have more people see that and get it out there and have it out in the world, which is cool. And just, I mean, you've done some amazing things. I mean, what are you, 180,000 subscribers on YouTube? That's
something
wild,
like that, man.
You're like the pioneer of the financial space in Canada for YouTube. That's crazy. So honored to be sitting here with you.
Thanks, Nolan. And yeah, if you guys didn't know, Nolan has his own channel as well. And he just hit a big milestone too, 25. Yeah. The big 25, I remember that. I remember, it takes me back, but I remember hitting obviously your first 1,000, and then 25 is a big one, a quarter way there to the plaque. And I will link all of his stuff around this video, of course. So what is it exactly that you talk about on your channel? Where's your area of expertise?
Yeah. So, I mean, my area of expertise is obviously mortgages. I've also run a real estate company, so it kind of goes back and forth between real estate and mortgages. We talk about both, just trying to get as much honest information out there as we can. And for me, I talk a little bit on my channel, but I don't talk about it a ton. A lot of my why, and the reason I ran a real estate company was back in 2012, I got totally burnt out on doing mortgages. It became about a transaction after transaction after transaction. And it just got so overwhelming and overbearing on me that I said, you know what, I'm out, I'm going to do something different. Went and ran a real estate company, was actually going to buy a real estate company, the biggest independent in Alberta at the time. Ran that for a year, realized that, that wasn't my circus, and I definitely didn't want those to be my monkeys. So I chose to go back to the company I loved. But the big thing for me was, there was this realization when a friend of mine said, you got to go and read the book Start With Why, which is Simon Sinek book.
Yeah. And
that book is it's all about finding your why. And I had lunch with my buddy, went and picked up the book at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, read it straight through to about 9 p.m. Then I took his course, which kind of funny, courses work, by the way. Took his course, came up with this beautiful why statement, which was to inspire people to thrive financially and give. And I'm looking at this thing at 3 or 4 in the morning going, man, this looks familiar. And I went back to a journal from university that had a mission statement in it, because one of my mentors had told me you need to have a journal and you need to write out a mission statement. And the mission statement was something to the effect, it wasn't quite as beautiful as to inspire people to thrive and give. But it was essentially to help people succeed financially so that they can give back beyond what they ever thought possible, or something to that effect. And I was like, wow, at some point between university and 2012, 2013, 2014, I totally lost track of that why, chasing dollars, and went back to our mortgage company. We became the first B Corp certified mortgage company in North America, which is a certification that companies like Patagonia have, all about transparency and accountability and environmental, social impact.
Yeah.
So really cool experience rebuilding that mortgage company. And then when the pandemic hit, we needed to get information out fast, and that's when the YouTube channel started. And now on a day-to-day basis, pretty much all I do is YouTube. My team does the mortgages, because for me, getting information out there about real estate, finances, mortgages is just that's it for me. That's all I ever want to do ever again, because it is bang on my why.
It's more valuable. It's exactly what you kind of set out to do. And that's kind of funny. It basically went full circle. Even from back then, that was kind of what you knew you wanted to do. And then it just, like you said, maybe drifted apart. And that's that's a cool story. Now, when you talk about that, so to me, someone who's in the stock market side, I have now got a little bit of real estate experience myself, but I would by no means say I know what I'm doing. In fact, probably don't know what I'm doing. But for people that are like, there is a big difference between the mortgage side and the real estate side. To me, again, someone looking outside, I might just say, oh, it's kind of like they're together. They're one and one.
Yeah.
But they're not.
No.
They're not.
No, they're not. I mean, one is debt and one is an asset, and you have to use the two at some point in order, especially in the Canadian real estate market right now, in order to actually acquire real estate. But at the end of the day, like the goal is to get rid of the mortgage, to get rid of the debt, and to have the assets. And that's the bigger piece of the mortgage and real estate side is how do I have the assets without somebody else co-owning it with me, whether that's the bank or the federal government's really like poorly designed first-time home buyer incentive where like the government's going to be your partner on your mortgage. Crazy, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, here's a fun question, maybe a biased answer coming up, but what's your opinion on getting mortgages for homes? I mean, that's like you said, it's kind of part of the process. You kind of have to do it. You do hear a lot of people like, again, maybe not our audience because they are a little more financially literate, but you hear people out there who'd say, don't take on a mortgage, don't take on debt. Like it's, again, I don't know if that's...
I mean, in an ideal situation, if you can do it without taking on debt, then do it without taking on debt. Like I bought a rental property in October of 2020, just kind of in the middle of the pandemic, and we bought it cash because if we can buy it without the debt, and guys are like, you're crazy, there's tax write-offs, everything else, it's like you're eventually going to pay the tax anyways, so you might as well just get rid of the debt if you can get it. And a lot of the thing a lot of people don't realize is that having debt, it actually increases your risk. So like Smith maneuver, for example, if you're borrowing money to invest and your expected returns are 8 or 9%, if you're using the Smith maneuver, you're actually reducing your expected returns because you're creating a risk level. That's something that Ray Dalio talked about a lot in different podcasts after he was in the Tony Robbins book. But I think in an ideal world, none of us have to borrow money to buy the things that we need. But the big lesson for me, like back in 2002, I bought my first property, and I thought, coming out of school as an economist, I thought I would be able to time the market, sell that property, and I thought I was selling it at the top. And I ended up being in 2005 was when I took possession of it, October 2005. And the market was flat between 2002 and 2005. It was a new construction, new build. I sold it October 2005. In 2006, the market went like this, and I missed out on basically $100,000 to $150,000 in returns on it because I sold it too early. Yeah. And the lesson for me there was, and I got completely out of the market and I missed all the run up. So the lesson for me there was, if you can buy at your earliest opportunity and stay in the market, it doesn't matter whether you think it's the middle, the bottom, or the top, because none of us are good at predicting what the market's going to do. Then, over a 20, 25, 30-year period, you're probably going to be way better off. And if I had kept that property, it would be probably pretty close to paid off by now. If not paid off, it'd be worth probably in the neighborhood of $450,000 to $550,000, and it would be a pretty significant piece of financial freedom for myself and my family. Now, we've got other properties since then. We learned our lesson, but the lesson was this: get into the market at your earliest opportunity when it makes sense for you, when you're going to live in the property, when you can afford it, and then at that point, you'll be able to have the ups and the downs in the market. And at the end of the day, whether you believe we're at the top of the market or the bottom of the market, 25 years from now, whatever's happening today is just a blip on this really big graph of what happened in the last 25 to 50 years on real estate. So just get in when you can get in, and if having debt is something that you need in order to do that, get the debt, but make sure it's something that you can manage.
Yeah, there's no doubt. That's actually an amazing answer. And there's so many comparables I draw to that, the way we explain stock market. And of course, it comes down to buying good assets, right? Like in good locations, favorable places, very, very similar message that we would speak to our audience, because at the end of the day, real estate is just another type of asset out there. Like it's just like buying a stock in a sense. And it's funny, like just for a little personal stuff, like I just bought like my townhouse recently, like maybe within a year. And it was because I had a family on the way, like our little girl and whatnot. And I didn't really feel like I had much of a choice. Obviously I have a choice at the end of the day, but like it was more just timing and do it. And it's funny because I think if you look at some of the numbers, I know we have started to see the market come down a little bit. I don't know entirely about this market because we in Richmond here live in like a pretty unique market with some outside money. I don't know. Again, I don't know what I'm talking about really. But you do hear these things with the Asian money and whatnot.
Yeah.
But it's just funny because I may be a perfect living case example where it's like, you bought at a top, you bought at a peak, but because of the approach that I'm coming into it, I purchased a house that was in my means. I purchased a house that I can afford in terms of the monthly cash flow, and if rates go up, which they are going up, and my variable mortgage is going up, these are all things that work well for me, and I'm not even in the slightest bit concerned that my home might be going down a little bit over the short term, because again, I'm thinking like 25, 30 years out, as you mentioned.
Yeah, short-term thinking, I mean, and short-term thinking is thinking about appreciation in real estate. That's the thing that causes really good people to make really bad decisions, right? When you're thinking about real estate, it is a long-term decision. It's a long-term play. It's the difference between what you're doing with investing and going, okay, I'm going to invest over the long term, and day trading. It's the
exact same. It's
day trading is gambling, right?
It's the exact same concept. That's such a good comparable. And maybe I'll put you on the spot here with a question that comes to my mind. What is your thoughts on variable mortgages versus fixed mortgages? Just like maybe, I don't know where you want to take this discussion or if there's something to talk about, but it's a question, and especially in the current environment, a very, very, I think, important question.
Yeah, so I mean, anybody who follows my channel, and if you look at my channel, you'll see we talk a lot about variable versus fixed. Really, what's becoming clear is it's actually not a two-part question, it's a three-part question. It's variable versus adjustable versus fixed. So variable is where you have a mortgage that the interest rate varies, but the payment stays the same. Adjustable is where the interest rate varies, but the payment actually
can also
adjusts.
Increase or decrease.
Yep.
Okay.
And then fixed is where you have a 5-year fixed mortgage. Now, the thing about 5-year fixed mortgage, so when I go internationally and I talk in the US or we go to Europe, a 5-year fixed in terms of other countries is often considered a 5-year adjustable in their terms. So really what we're talking about is we're talking about variable versus adjustable versus a long-term adjustable. And then what you have to realize with fixed rate mortgages is that you're paying a premium. You might be paying multiple premiums for security.
Right.
And that security value comes down to your own personal risk tolerances. So you have to calculate the differences, what you think is going to happen with interest rates, and whether or not you're willing to take the risk. That's all it is. It's a risk question.
Right.
And then you have to understand that you're paying more for a fixed rate, typically a premium for a fixed rate for it to be locked in for a 5-year period. And then you're also paying quite often, and not always, but quite often, a premium to get out of it, so a penalty. And you basically pay more on the front and the back end, and you lose your flexibility, lose a little bit of negotiating power. So if from a risk tolerance perspective, and I've taken a little bit of flack on YouTube from a couple of mortgage brokers, one mortgage broker and a realtor, who they go back, like they go deep into my archives. Like I have hair down to here. I can't even figure out which video they pulled because I do like 300 a year, and they're like cherry picking like different thoughts. And it's like, well, Nolan's wrong, because when interest rates were 1.5 and you could get a 5-year fix for 1.5% and you could get a variable for 1.5%, he was wrong because he was telling people to choose variable. It's like, no, we weren't telling people to choose variable. We were telling them to do the risk assessment, and pretty much anybody who was taking a 1.5 or 1.25 fixed versus a 1.25 or 1.5 variable, like those people were few and far between. But when the gap started to grow between fixed and variable, that's when people started choosing variable more often. And to this point, like I think Canadians are about 60% variable versus fixed in the last couple of years. And really what it comes down to is risk tolerance. And you know, we kind of got duped a little bit by the Bank of Canada. I was looking at BNN today, and the deputy whatever of the Bank of Canada, she's saying we're going to try to earn your trust back and we're going to fight inflation. It's like, well, hold on a second, because a year and a half ago, Tiff Macklem sat there and said interest rates are going to be low for a very, very long time, and released a report at the same time saying they're going to be low out until the end of 2023, and here we are, and interest rates are going up. So it's like, the long and short of it is, it's a long-term versus a short-term decision, and it's a risk-based decision. And over the long term, if you have a variable and you stick with that plan for 20 to 25 years, you're probably going to win regardless of what happens with rates. But the one thing for sure is you're going to have more flexibility because you got a 3-month interest penalty, and if rates go up and then come back down, you'll be able to renegotiate, maybe do some things to mix things around and get a better rate or a better deal. And ultimately, with some good strategy, it's probably a better choice if you aren't going to lose sleep at night.
Right. And it's just funny how YouTube, people can take what you say out of context and spin it like, I don't doubt that at the end of the day, you're giving the different options. You're talking about the pros and cons, and it's so funny how someone can just, like, I can literally make a video on stock and say, hey guys, check out this stock, do your own research, due diligence, and then they'll go out and buy it and say, well, like, why'd you tell me to buy that stock? It's like, we as influencers, and you'll start to realize this more and more, like, now that I'm like a bigger channel, it just becomes more and more and more, you know? And at first, when I started off, there was like, that little group of, you know, kind of people were smaller, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. You start to hear it more and more, but I guess that just comes with, that's part of the job in a sense. But, you know, one thing I would just say there, which I'm really, like, from your explanations and just this chat alone, is like, it's just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to this stuff. And that's what you, like you said, it's your why to go out and educate on this stuff and to, like, teach about the stuff so people can make the most informed decisions. Like, I'll just tell you, when it came to that variable adjusted fixed, I didn't even know that. I don't even know whether mine's like variable or adjusted. And it's little snippets like these that I know are stuff that we all should be aware about and stuff that we should.
Yeah, totally.
It should be just second nature, honestly. It's just that it's tough to learn this stuff unless you're really in the heat of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like, you're looking at an education in economics, and you're looking at 18 years in the business. I never thought I'd be a mortgage broker. Like, I thought I was going to do what you did, be an investment banker, be a professional economist, and that was not what happened. But when I halfway through university, I had a professor who I put my hand up in the class and said, hey, what do you think is going to happen in the economy? And he looked at me, and this guy was like, he was known for being kind of over the top, and he's like, what do you think is going to happen in the economy? He goes, look out the effing window. And then he goes back to teaching. And I'm like, okay, well, I wait about 5 minutes, and anybody who's ever been in a university lecture theater knows that they all have one thing in common. They have no windows.
Right.
So I put my hand up again and said, what effing window? And we're using the full foul language. And apparently it was okay for him to swear at me, but not me to swear at him. He kicked me out of the class. But 3 days later, I walked back in, and he says, oh, you effing came back. He goes, get out, but come and see me after hours. And I came and saw him after hours, and he said, you know, if you want to know what's going to happen in the economy, you need to be part of the economy. You need to go and work in finances if that's what you want to do. So easiest way to do that was one of two options. You can go and be a teller at TD, and TD was like, my girlfriend at the time got hired by them because they were actively recruiting university students. Like, they had tables set up in Mac Hall, and, which was the cafeteria at the University of Calgary. Or you could go and challenge the mortgage broker's test, and it took me 3 days. You can't do that, by the way, anymore. Now you have to take 2 courses, and you can't challenge either of them. But 3 days later, I went and grabbed the books, wrote the test, and, you know, fell in love with helping people make the biggest financial decision of their life and make it properly, right?
Yeah.
And for me, like, that's always been the thing. It's been, how do we make sure that people get the information they need to make the right decision for them? And, you know, our biggest obstacles right now are, you know, banks going, here's the lowest rate, and don't worry about anything else other than this, because that's not the most important part of getting a mortgage. And then all these rate aggregator websites where you go and you type in best mortgage rate in Canada, and then they just shoot a rate at you, and it has no explanation of what comes with that super low rate. But like everything else in life, you get what you pay for, right? Mm-hmm. And if you're paying the absolute lowest rate, which, by the way, is usually like a cup of coffee, maybe 2 cups of coffee a week from a difference in payment perspective, well, if you're paying that super low rate, you're probably having features and things stripped out, and that's the biggest obstacle that Canadians are going to find themselves in the next 2 or 3 years as rates go up. Some people are going to find themselves with big 5-year fixed penalties with big banks, and they're going to find themselves with no movement clauses or other things that surprise them. And when they need that ability to go and renegotiate or refinance or do something to put themselves in a better situation, they're going to lose that opportunity. And that's what we're trying to prevent people from finding themselves in that position. It's like we say internally at our company, we're like, we have a mission against crappy mortgages, right?
Jeez, yeah, I'm just like absorbing all this myself because I don't even know really what to say following that, but.
Well, I mean, the tables will be turned when I start asking you about investing and stuff like that, because I mean that's your area of expertise and something that I'm not super familiar with and super good at. But yeah, the YouTube thing has been an amazing blessing from the perspective of being able to talk to people, being able to have really great conversations, being able to get information like out to 2 million Canadians a year. Like it's phenomenal, right?
It is. It's special. And like, that's why I was so excited to, like, as you can tell from this video, like, there's just so much additional information that's out there that is so important and taught so well. Like, that's why I want you as part of this network. That's why we want to team up, and we want to basically, like, essentially build a community of people that can learn in all aspects, because it does all go hand in hand at the end of the day. Why do you invest in the stock market? It's to make more money. It's to go prepare for your future. Well, at some point down the road, you're going to be buying the biggest investment of your life, and you want to make sure you're doing that properly. So maybe, I guess, in wrapping up in summary, so what is it exactly that you do? Like, I know you kind of explained it, but like Mortgage 360, what is it that you do on the back end? And again, like, maybe we can finish with the academy. Nolan's going to be joining up basically in our network and being there with the students and providing training programs for all the students that are already on and anybody in the future that joins.
Yeah.
And he's going to be one of many, but basically our specialist, our lead when it comes to mortgages, real estate. That's where your experience is. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Mortgage 360, like, how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, think of us as kind of the protector of people who are getting mortgages. Like, our job is to make sure that people don't step on landmines when they're getting the mortgage, or have a surprise that's $25,000 to $30,000 or $40,000 in penalties 3 to 5 years down the road. Like, that's really our job, because you can go out and you can watch YouTube videos, you can read all the information that's out there, or, you know, when we were driving over here, I talked a little bit about my mentor. You talked about coaching groups that you're in. The best advice I've ever received in regards to building businesses and doing certain things is from coaching and mentoring, and that's really what we've created our company around. Is we're becoming less and less of a mortgage company and more of an education and a fiduciary company. So in other words, we're teaching people how to do it properly, and then we are also teaching people the actual education around how to do it themselves if they want to do it. But if they don't want to do it themselves, we'll do it for them and make sure that they're completely protected. It's funny because, and how important it is to have education and advice. My mom worked for Bank of Montreal for 47 years. Back in, let's call it 2005, 2006, I'm not sure the exact dates, BMO on some of their ultra low rate mortgages put what's called a bona fide sale clause in their mortgages, which meant you couldn't switch to a different lender midterm. You had to ride it out for 5 years. You were pretty much stuck with BMO for 5 years. And I remember being the person that told my mom, who was a banker of 47 years, that my mortgage had this bona fide sale clause in it, and then I think the BMO mortgages have it too, because where I got my mortgage was funded by BMO at the time. And ultimately, you know, she had 47 years of experience and didn't know about this thing that BMO was doing that potentially could have cost their clients a significant amount of money. And by the way, BMO is a phenomenal lender. Mm-hmm. They do amazing mortgages. If you have their full featured mortgage, they don't deal in the broker channel anymore. My dad worked for them in their broker channel when they were in there. They're a great bank, but it was just like this one little thing that nobody in the company even realized was in there had major ramifications. And that's what I see our job as, and our role at Mortgage 360 is making sure that, you know, whether it's that or any of the other dozen things that other banks and other lenders do, that our clients are 100% protected from the things that they don't know that they don't know. So I mean, really, that's our role. Like, we're the shepherd, we're the guide through the process, in the exact same way that the Investing Academy is the guide in the process. And by the way, we're so excited that our clients are going to be able to come in and have access to your stuff, and we'll be able to push our people to that, because the people who are looking for down payments, the people who are trying to save that faster, they're going to learn a lot by knowing how to invest and using the tools that you're providing, which is why it's so symbiotic, which is why I'm so absolutely thrilled that we're putting this together, and we're able to put our minds together and put our content together and really make a huge impact on the world. And, you know, the huge benefit to me is you have a significantly bigger platform from a YouTube standpoint, and from an Investing Academy standpoint, that huge platform is an even better avenue for me to meet my why and fulfill my why, which is, again, to inspire people to thrive and give.
Wow. Well, no, that's you kind of summarized it up there. It is so exciting. And of course, guys, as always, the Academy is down below. In about 15 days, less than 15 days. So I think May 15th, we're going to be going live with your content, basically integrated into the library. And like you said, maybe you're someone that's saving for your first home. How do you do that properly? Maybe you just need a boot camp on like mortgages. Like, these are all going to complement everything that we do, because yeah, that's exactly right. Working together, we can help so many more people than just working alone. And with that said, I guess maybe we could wrap it up there. I'm very, very glad that you're here. We got the chance to meet. And I just had one more thought that you were saying about, like, you're saying your coaches and your programs that you've taken in your life, like, again, I don't know if it's for you. I assume it is, but like some of the coaching programs that I've paid like thousands and thousands of dollars for have been the best return for me. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be here without them. Mm-hmm. And I mean, our program is literally $19.99 a month. Like, it's $20 a month. It's
so ridiculously cheap.
It's ridiculous, yeah. And
just as an aside, I saw the internals of the course for the first time about 3 weeks ago, and when I opened it up and I saw the amount of information, the quality of information, the topics that were covered, like, no word of a lie, it blew my mind. Like, the level of detail that you've gone into and the professionalism and how well it's done. Like, there's nobody doing what you're doing.
Thanks, man. Well, hey, we're glad to have you on board and to grow this network together. But I guess with that, we'll kind of wrap things up. If you enjoyed this video, guys, as always, give it a thumbs up. Go subscribe to Nolan's channel. I'll be linking everything down below. But it's a pleasure to have you here.
Amazing. Thanks for having me.
Looking forward to what's in store.
I love it. Awesome.